Hello, and thank you for joining. My name is James Connell. I'm a former digital editor at the New York Times and the Herald Tribune. I'm a media consultant now, working with executives at Dalet as they examine the future of media and video content. Raoul, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Raoul Cospen. I'm the director of the product strategy for our news offering, and thank you for joining. And I've been with Dalet for the last 20 years, and I have to say that I've seen a lot of different TV newsrooms all over the world, especially transforming their operations over the last 2 decades. And big changes like the introduction of IT standard hardware in news production, the invention of story-centric and even the unified news operations that we introduced a few years ago. And I think that today the acceleration of digital opens a new era of possibilities.
What jumps out at you today? What's the difference between now and, say, 5 or 10 years ago?
I tend to think that these new trends, technologies, and production needs are really driven from the consumer sides. And the way we all watch news today is different from 10 years or 20 years ago. It used to be mostly televisions or radio or newspapers. And now we see most consumers watching news also through digital platforms. And there is an increasing number of digital players, just pure digital players that are really entering the news market. And these put even more pressure on the competitive landscapes in the news industry.
I've often heard you talk about digital first, Raoul. Tell us how this is related.
Looking at typical workflows today, newsrooms are producing for TV, for radio, and once this production is over, the digital teams come in place and repurpose that content. And most of the time, the production team and the digital team are separate. They use separate tools. And if you want to really produce efficiently for your digital platforms, you need to support what we call digital first workflows. This means that you don't need to wait for the TV team or the radio team to finish the work and then to repurpose the content they have produced to your different platforms. You can really work collaboratively on the same story and even give the freedom to digital teams to take the lead on the actual production. They don't need to wait for the TV team or for the radio team to produce. So they are really part of the production process. And at Dalet, we have focused our energies on creating a set of tools and a data model that really fosters this collaboration between the digital teams and the production teams. And this is really a radical change in traditional news production workflows that is really focused on the rundown and the TV script. This brings really new production experience and opens plenty of opportunities to rethink and improve the way you produce content.
So how have these changes influenced the way that you think about product development and strategy at Dalet?
We have spent the last few years trying to think out of the box, trying to think new. And as a result, we are today really proud to introduce this new offering called Dalet Pyramid. And Dalet Pyramid is, first of all, unified news operations. And this was always at the heart of Dalet solutions. So it was really what made Dalet really successful in the industry. So one solution, one single user interface in which you've got all the tools, all the content that you need to produce your great news. And it's covering the end-to-end workflows for all types of screens, including radio. And with Pyramid, we are going much further than this. So first, the Pyramid frontend is completely web-based, including the audio and video editing. It has a very innovative concept also at the core that we call Storytelling 360, which is really increasing the collaboration capabilities at the story level. Okay, so it's not only about having a fresh new user interface. Dalet Pyramid is built on a modern backend designed with cloud technology, and that really brings more flexibility and agility ever than before.
Let's go back to the UX for a second. Let's say I'm a journalist and I'm using Pyramid for the first time. What is going to make me say, wow, this is life-changing. I am going to work so much faster and so much better now?
Well, the number one thing you will notice when you first use Dalet Pyramid user interface is the modernity. It's super modern. It's very easy to learn. So it employs, the best practices you would expect from a modern web platform. So you probably use Facebook, Slack, Trello, and all those kind of systems, and they are setting the standards of today's usability. And the user experience of Dalet Pyramid is very similar. And if you use those systems, you will be comfortable with using the Pyramid. And the second aspect is what we call storytelling 360. And I need to detail this a bit. It's a very new concept where all the tools and all the contents are available not only in the user interface, but at the story level. So in the past, we used to ingest the content somewhere, in a specific storage place, and then we used to be able to do editing somewhere else, and then you had another system to do the scripts, and then you were linking the different components together using moss links, all these kind of things. But now, with Pyramid, we offer a radical change, and from one screen, I can manage every single aspect of my story. So my ingest, my news gathering, my archive collection. I can, create my rough cuts out of the same user interface, out of the story. I can, deal with my narration. I can even create a chat room dedicated to the story that I can connect on Slack, for instance. And I can deal with my subtitles, my scripts for digital, for TV, for radio. And on top of this, I can also manage the work orders and the assignments, meaning who is going to do the field shooting, who is going to do the graphics, who is going to do the editing, do I need a satellite feed, do I need to send a crew on site, just imagine this is every aspect of the story, the operation, the production, the distribution side of things into the same screen, into what we call the story editor. So that is a fundamental for a much better collaboration and efficiency at the story level. This is a kind of next generation story centric. This is what we call storytelling 360.
Tell me a bit more about how Pyramid increases productivity for the individual user.
Well, actually, the production tools and the workflow management have always been at the heart of Dalet news offering. Just take as an example our AI-based caption editor or our rough cut editor. They are a very good example of this. They enable you to ingest content faster, to produce captions faster. And recommendation is another good example. Just as for the example, let's say I'm writing a story about the US election, and as I type my story, I'm really interested in getting in real time content, being wires, being videos, being other stories that is related to my story. And I don't want to necessarily spend a lot of time doing hundreds of searches to find relevant content. And really, AI allows me to do this. I mean, artificial intelligence will really be part of the system, not necessarily to do the work instead of the users, obviously, but to complement the work of the users, the work of journalists.
Okay, and what about the IT managers and the CTOs at media companies? What's going to convince them that this is something they should look into?
Well, IT managers and CTOs not only think technology, they also think total cost of ownership. They also think return on investment, and they think value. So for some of our customers, the goal is going to unified systems because they need to better serve these distributed workforces. And rather than having multiple systems to serve multiple locations, they can basically centralize the backend into a public cloud, for instance. So With Pyramid, we will have this ability to centralize some of the news production backend in a public and in a private cloud, while some of the while part of the system is going to remain on premises, for example, studios and some of the ingest. And we can really work with a hybrid infrastructure here with Pyramid. And the architecture of Pyramid also adopts today's technology standards. I mean, we are talking about Dockers, we are talking about Kubernetes, we are talking about a web front end, we are talking about an open system, a GraphQL API, the BPM workflow engine, and the media asset management at the core.
So what are the different ways that media companies can implement Dalet Pyramid? Is it all or nothing?
Well, we have great news on this front because Dalet will be able to offer Dalet Pyramid as a subscription. We will be able to offer the option to host and even to operate the solution. So we can offer basically Pyramid as a full SaaS solution. And this means that this is going to be a lot less pressures on CTO and IT managers who can really offload that part of the hard work. And it means that Dalet has transformed also the way they can service this kind of operations with environment managers, with DevOps. And with this respect, I mean, the Dalet architecture is very flexible.
So let's say I'm a CTO. Where do I find out more about Pyramid?
Actually, this is very simple. You need to go to dalet.com/pyramid. You will get a good overview of Dalet Pyramid. But obviously, the best is to reach us, to get some demos, to get a better understanding on the architecture, and to better understand how Pyramid can provide value to your business.